Welcome to Chapter 8, Session 3. In this session, we're going to start playing around with some animations and some transitions with our video files. Let's get started. So there is a CSS attribute called transition that will allow you to transition from an original state to an end state when a pseudo event effect occurs. Pseudo effects like hovering or mousing over, these type of things. And that pseudo effect will start the transition. So if I have, in the example here, a link and the background is white, color is black, and the transition is a background over 4 seconds. When I go to hover over it, the background wants to turn to green and the color wants to change to white. So it is going to change the background over 4 seconds. And at the end of the 4 seconds, the color will then flip to white, because we have not transitioned the color and the background. You can apply them both at the same time. I could say transition color, comma, background, and put in the 4 seconds. So in our transition, we give what property is affected and how long should that occur from start to finish, generally in seconds. Transitions can only be run when a CSS property is being changed, such as a hover event or some other pseudo effect like that. You can't just set it to run automatically when the page loads. That's animation. We'll talk about that in a second. Transitions are only run once, and you can't have a transition on loop. So it just does it once and then it's over. There is an initial and an end state for the transition, but you can't tell them what the intermediate states or those states in between are going to be. So in this case, it went from white to green for the background, but I couldn't tell it, I want to have it go red, then blue, then yellow, then green. It had to just transition slowly from one to the other, and it uses an algorithm to do that. Sometimes that transition is really cool and we really like it, and sometimes we want to do a little bit more. So let's go look at some transitions. We're now going to create a hover transition for our menu up across the top. So our movies, actors, directors, genres, and find. We're going to add some hovers for that. So if we go back to our royal.html, we are going to add in our animation CSS. Let's go grab our animate CSS. Okay. First thing we're going to do is add a transition to our top links here. Now this is our nav bar inside here. So you can see that we have a nav bar here and it has an ID of top links. That's where we're going to be getting that from. It's also a class of horizontal if that matters to you. So here we are going to do our nav bar with an ID of top links. And we want our anchor tags. So with our anchor tags, we are going to set their color to black. I'm sorry, to white, excuse me. Font size is going to be 1 EM. Our letter spacing is going to be 0 EM because we want them kind of nice together. And we're going to add in a text shadow. Which is an RGBA in black. It's also going to have -1 pixel and 1 pixel. Okay. So there we have just made them white on a black background, given them a little bit of a text shadow, a really small text shadow, and made their letter spacing and their font sizes equal. Now, what are we going to do when we hover? Because that's what's going to transition. So we're going to do our nav, top links, and our A tag when it is hovered. Okay, we're going to set our color equal to RGB 255, 183, 25, which is kind of an orange. We're going to make our font size really big at 3 EM. We're going to make our letter spacing a little bit bigger at 0.1 EM. Not a lot bigger, but a little bit bigger. And we'll make our text shadow an RGB a 0, 0, 0, 0.5. So again, that's black, but we're going to make our attributes of our text shadow bigger. So 15px, -3px, and 8px. Okay, so if I refresh this right now, this will go instantly. Jump, jump. See how instant that is? Okay, but we made it bigger, we made it orange instead of white, we made our drop shadow larger, or our text shadow larger, and increased a little bit of space. So now that we have that, you will see that the start and the end are going to be the same. One of the settings on transitions is its timing. How fast or slow does the transition occur? Most of the time you can just set it to linear, where it'll be the same speed from one side to the other. But the default is actually to ease, which is to start fast and then slow at the end. You can change that by setting that transition time, the timing function, to something different. You can ease in, you can ease out, you can ease in and out. You can use a linear, as I said, or you can even use something called a cubic Bezier, which is it goes really fast, then goes backwards, then goes forward again, and you can change around this timing. There is also a delay that says don't do this right away, don't transition right away when I do whatever pseudo event, wait for a second or two. So that can be like if I hover over something, don't immediately do the transition, wait until 2 seconds and then go ahead and do it. So this is the different timing options that you have for your transition. Let's add the transition to it so it occurs over time. So with our top links at the top, because we want our element, not our hover, we are going to add a transition. We are going to set color to be 1.5 seconds. And we're going to ease in. And we're going to delay a little bit at 0.5 seconds, comma, because we're not done. We're then going to change our font size. And it is going to go over 2 seconds. It is going to ease. And we don't want to delay on that one. We don't need the colon. Our letter spacing is going to be over 2 seconds. And it is going to ease out. And finally, our text shadow. That is going to occur over 2 seconds. It is going to use that cubic Bezier. And we're going to do 0.6, then 0, then 0.8, then 0.5. Now, this transition, all 4 things are going to change at different levels. So you can see it took 2 seconds to go. So 1, 2, and everything changed a little bit differently. As you can see, as I'm moving out of it, it reverses, goes in, moves out, and I can move around my genre. See how neat that visual is? Of being able to make things look like they're moving as we're rolling over them. Most transitions are symmetric, meaning they go to the end state and back to the initial state when the effect is turned off. So as you hover over it, it goes to the end state. When you unhover and you go back to the original, it does the exact same thing in reverse. So when you turned off. However, you can set up an asymmetric transition if you add a second transition to the end state pseudo element. Remember, we only have to add transition to the element itself, and then the pseudo element is going to be where it goes to, and then it'll come back. But if you add a transition to your pseudo element, so your hover, then it will follow that one whenever it tries to go back to the original state. So I could say go from red to green in my first transition, and then from green to blue in my second transition, or something along those lines. So I could change different things as things go on. Now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about animations. Animations in CSS use a keyframes at rule. So it's going to be an at keyframes. And it's going to define what they call a flight or some other name as we go along. So in this case, I'm going to give it an ID field called, in this case, I'm calling it flight. It's going to have a start and a to, which is going to say where is the object going to start, where is it going to go to, and then all of the elements in there are going to be what is going to change. I can change the background, I can change the left, the top, the right, the bottom, I can change the margins, I can change the font color, the font size. I can change all of this inside of my individual keyframes. The example we've given here has a keyframe at 0, at 5%, 10%, 20%, and then jumps to the 2. So it'll go slow, 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 and then jump. And that's how it'll go. So it'll immediately take, and then it'll go over timing. So however long the time is that we apply this animation. In this case, we are going to go at 2 seconds, it's going to be in that 90-25 position, and then it'll take 10 seconds to get to the end. Once you build your keyframe flight, you're going to build an animation. You're going to go ahead and apply that animation to your element. So in this case, I'm doing it to my entire body. So my animation name is rainbow, and my duration is 5 seconds. In the example here, my animation name is flight, and my animation duration is 10 seconds, depending on how I choose to do it. So let's go see how we can build an animation with our video object. We are going to apply the spin animation on our video here. So we're going to come into our animation fold, our animation CSS, and we are going to add in a keyframes called spin. Remember, it's an at rule. Its name is going to be spin. And inside of our keyframes, we are going to say at 0%, we want to transform and rotate 0 degrees. And at 100%, we want to transform and we want to rotate 360 degrees. So now we're going to add in our animation style, video, animation, spin. So that's the one we're going to use. It's going to take 4 seconds. It's going to go linear, and it's going to go forever. You ready? So now you can see that the ceiling dance is going to rotate infinitely and take 4 seconds to flip around. It's kind of a cool little visual. That's not really what we wanted to do though, because we're going to play around a little bit with that. One of the convenient factors about animation is that you can choose to run controls on it. You can tell it to start, to stop, to reverse, to restart, something along those lines. And in this case, we're going to go ahead and make a little checkbox that's going to tell us how to do that. And then we'll play around with some formatting to make that look prettier for the user's purposes. So let's go see how we can control our animation. So the first thing we're going to do is add in a little checkbox that says stop it from spinning. So over back in our royal.html, we are going to go down above just before the video. So it's going to say click to play, and then just before the video, we are going to add an input type of checkbox and an ID of rotate video. Underneath that, we're going to give it a label for rotate video. Let's go back over to our animation, and after the video element here, we are going to go ahead and say that if you have an input that is called rotate video and it is checked, then we are going to say animation play state is going to be running. However, if our input rotate video is not checked, then we are going to make our animation play state equal paused. Okay, this is going to add a little checkbox there. It's going to say if it's checked, spin it. If it's not checked, pause. If it's checked, spin it. If it's not checked, pause. So we can start adding some control here, being able to do the pausing of that. So we're also going to add a little icon for the start stop instead of using the checkbox, which we can do. So we are going to go down to the animation icon styles, because this is where we're going to be putting them. And we are going to say our input, rotate video, is not going to be shown up. So we're going to say just lay down. Then we're going to say input, rotate video. If it's checked, make the label after have the content of /270B semicolon. And if it is input, rotate video not checked, then the label after is going to be content /21BB. You're going to see these in just a second. Okay. See its little spin and its little stop. So what we've done is we've said, if we're clicking it, go ahead and click the little spin button or the little stop button. And isn't that a little cuter than just having a little checkbox? Okay, we're going to go ahead and format those a little bit, make them look a little prettier. So underneath the checked, unchecked, we're going to go ahead and add in a label. And we're going to say background is RGB 5687 119. Our border radius, we're going to set that one to 65 pixels, so it'll make it almost a circle. We're going to set our color, text color, equal to RGBA 255, 255, 255, and then 0.7. So it's black. I'm sorry, it's gray because it's translucent. It's 0.7. Display is going to be block. Then we're going to deal with some fonts. Font size 35 pixels. Font weight is bold. Line height is going to be 50 pixels. Let's add in some margins. 10 px and auto. Again, comma's bad. Position is going to be relative. Text align to the center. Width is going to be 50 pixels. And its z-index is going to be 2 because we want it on top of everything else. Okay, this is just the label text. Wow, that was a big difference. So we have our background that's blue. It's a circle. Its color is gray. It's in a block, so and its font size is 35 pixels, so it's pretty large. It's got a line height. It's got a little bit of margins. It put it in center because it autoed. Position was relative, text align was center, was the text inside the background is centered, and it's on top, which means it sits on top of our image as it's spinning. We can still click it, even though the image is there, to go ahead and do that. So you can see how we can use our CSS to format that. Okay. Now we're going to play around with our keyframes. So I'm going to come back up here to our keyframes. Our original keyframes just had 0 and 100%. But what we really want to do is have the spinning go along with the dancing. So when the box that Fred Astaire is standing in is going to spin, that's when we want the image to spin. So we have a couple of, they've already gone through and added and told you what they all are. At 23%, okay, so what this is going to do, and now we need to change our timing from being 4 seconds to 104 seconds, and that's where the animation stops. We can still do the linear and the infinite. Okay. So what we're going to do is play and tell it to spin. Now, it'll go ahead and go for 23 or 25 seconds or so until it starts to do that first spin that Fred Astaire has to go through. So he goes backwards, and then he starts to go to the other wall, and this is where the spin happens. So you can almost see how he's doing this in the middle of his video. So that will get you to the first wall, and then after another couple of seconds, you'll see how it'll start to spin again. And now he's dancing on the ceiling. So this is exactly how it worked when they were doing this video in 1951. The next thing that we're going to do here is include a script file that is going to allow us to start it instantly. So this is the script file. They've already written it for you. So get the element. We're going to do the play, the on click. Go ahead and do the play, pause, on load to attach the event. And then this is what it's going to say, so that the two go together, the play and the button. You don't need to know the JSS or the JavaScript for right now. All you need to do is to include it in our header and then to add some instructions. So we're going to add our script. We're starting to get you used to the idea of JavaScript because we're going to get there next week. Our source is going to be CP spin, which is our JavaScript. We can just close it. So that will add that in automatically. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add a little bit of text on how the spinning is going to work. So before our input label, we have our text that says click the play button. To see, so we're going to add in a second little part. So just a little bit more text here, and we've added in that script. So now, when I hit the play button, it plays it to keep them synced. And now when I hit the stop button, it pauses it. So we've connected this button with the playing and pausing and the rotation animation at the same time. All right, so hopefully that was interesting, all the different things that you can learn with CSS and animations and transitions and our video and our audio elements. For your review, you are going to be adding a separate page just for Fred Astaire. So Fred Astaire was the guy that was in the royal wedding picture. You're going to be adding an audio and a video. You're going to do some transitions and animations, very similar to the tutorial. When you are finished with it, remember to follow it in order, ask for help, start early. When you're finished, go ahead and post it to your website or post it up to D2L. Our Case 1 project is a companion website for a college course. In this case, they're talking about rhetoric in the United States. Follow the directions, and the important part about this is going to be your text track. We're going to be playing around with making sure those captions show up correctly. When you're finished, go ahead and submit to D2L or upload to your site. Your Case 4 project, you have an option. They have given you a Robert Frost set of poems with an audio and a video from YouTube that you can use. You are welcome to choose this one. They've given you the examples, they've given you the video, the audio clip, and you can go ahead and do that. However, if Robert Frost isn't your cup of tea and you want to pick your own poet, artist, or musician, you are welcome to build your own site based on that. There is no penalty for building it according to the directions, so you can still get 100% on it. But I might add in a little extra credit if you did make it on your own. So if you choose to make your own site, you still have to follow all of the same requirements that are in the assignment. You have to include at least one video and one audio with the controllers, the embedded plugin, the styles, but you can have your own layout and your own options in that. When you're finished with this, push it up to your website or to D2L. Have a great week. Make sure that you ask for help this week. This week is going to include the midterm as well, so don't forget to watch about the midterm.